I'm not going to talk about television today. And this is great. I didn't know this place existed. I was actually here at the Alabama Theater Saturday night. I hosted the Miss Hoover High School Beauty Walk. They had 109 high school girls in that. I am still high off the smell of hairspray. And trust me, I'm fascinated by hair. I want to share a few things about me that you might not know, because you need to know my background just a little bit. I do believe that I am the Forrest Gump of the new generation. I am from Greenbow, Alabama. All right? Has anybody ever read the book or watched Forrest Gump? Most of you are on that page, right? Winston Groom, the guy that wrote that book, he patterned Greenbow after what town? Greenville. That's where I'm from. I lived in Greenville, Alabama when I was a little boy, and I loved it. A little town in South Alabama between Montgomery and Mobile. Maybe you've heard of it, or maybe you've stopped by the Bates House of Turkey. That's the most famous restaurant there off the interstate. I love Greenville. But something happened to me when I was fairly young that would force me to make a big change in my life. When I was 7, my father abandoned me and my mom. I'm a fatherless child. He walked out in the middle of the night like a jackrabbit. My father never said goodbye, have a nice life, see you later. My father never told me he loved me. I don't know if he ever did. But it forced some changes. My mom was the secretary at Greenville High School, and we moved from Greenville to a horrible sounding place called Tuscaloosa when I started 5th grade. So as a little boy, I did live in Greenbow, Alabama. We were in San Francisco last summer. We had at a restaurant called the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company. You guys ever been there before? They found out I was from Greenbow, Alabama. You would think the President of the United States had just walked in that room. They wanted me to speak Alabama on the PA system in the restaurant, you know, whatever that means. Another reason I think I might be Forrest Gump is the odd thing that I have never applied for a job in my life. That's strange. When I was in high school, they called the office out there, a local radio station. They wanted to know if there was a kid that wanted to work bad hours for minimum wage on weekends, and they gave him my name. I walked out there, and they said, well, you come to work the next Saturday. And ever since then, it's been an amazing journey that will be a 40-year journey next year. So I've been doing the old school stuff for a long time, but today we'll talk about social media. And let me just say this. I am not a social media expert, okay? You know, anytime somebody calls me that, the first thing I'll do is say, wait, I'm not. There are some in this room, but I am not one. All I am going to tell you is what's worked for me. And I honestly think a lot of people that say they're social media experts aren't. But I do think I understand the people, the culture, and the geography of this state pretty well. Hey, I dare you to name one spot within 100 miles where I've never been before. I mean, I understand some things about where we are. But we'll talk about this today. And I want to do 3 things. I want to talk about bad things that have not worked. I want to talk about good things that have worked. All I'm doing is tell you what's worked for me and what hasn't worked. I'm not an expert in social media. I'm telling you what's worked and what didn't work. And then I want to do some case studies. And at the end, if we have time, we'll do some questions, all right? Let's knock out the bad things. And I don't like to be a negative person. Anybody that knows me knows that I like to be a positive person. I believe a good leadership characteristic is if you're a person of passion, positive energy. So I don't like to dwell on bad things. But having said that, I have seen some people, and I have ventured into some of these areas maybe in the past, and it just doesn't work when it comes to getting numbers. And I don't know what your goal is here today. I don't know if you want to get a jillion followers on Twitter or all these likes on Facebook. I don't exactly know what you're trying to do, but what I want to point out is how I have engaged those in which I communicate with via social media. This is about engagement. That's all I'm doing today. All right? Let me just start with some things that don't work for me. Maybe they work for you, but they don't work for me. All right? We live in a nation divided in a lot of different ways. In this state, we are divided in a lot of different ways. And I'm just saying, if you dive into some of these issues that split us apart, I don't think that's the right thing to do. If you're trying to reach a mass audience and build up this following through social media, this stuff's not going to work. And I guess the main thing is political worldview. I could stand here and tell you, I love Barack Obama or I love George Bush, and half of you would hate me. And I'm not going there. I avoid it like the plague. And yes, we all have strong feelings on this stuff. But If you work for an entity or a corporation or a business that is trying to engage your customers, or if you're trying to build a following, I don't think this is the way to do it. There are other outlets to do political worldview stuff. And what's the other biggest polarizing thing in this state? Yes. How many people on Twitter, they'll put this really useful, piece of information out on social media, and they'll end it with what? RTR, WDE. It's just like, y'all know what that means, don't you? Are y'all from here? Look, I'm just telling you that is not what I will post some weather information that is specific to either Auburn or Tuscaloosa. You watch the comment thread. It deteriorates into the football haters. After about 4 or 5 minutes, it's the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen. And it's just like I don't even want to post information for those two places sometimes because it deteriorates. We live in a world gone mad sometimes over this football stuff. But I'm just saying that doesn't work for me. And again, I'm going to fly through this because I want to talk about the good stuff. Everybody in here will push spam to your followers. Everybody in here will do this. I don't care who you are. You will push something that your followers don't want pushing, or inviting them to something, or encouraging them to buy something, or watching a TV program. But I've seen people do way too much stuff with this. A lot of people ask me to promote stuff. What was funny for years and years and years? Hey guys, I've been here since the 70s. I replaced Rosemary, and nobody in here knows who that is. When I was a little boy, I replaced Rosemary, and Roy replaced Pat Gray. We came along in the 70s, and for years and years and years, people always wanted me to mention something on television. Plug this or plug that. They don't anymore now. What do you think they want me to do? Tweet it. Times have changed, and I totally control that Twitter stream. The TV station doesn't, so it's totally my choice, but I have learned if you spam them too much, they'll go away. And I agree with that. Be selectful, you know that. But let's go right to this thing here, and this drives me crazy. Do we have any TV people here today? I know we have one right here because we work together. Cover your ears. The old school television people, a lot of them don't get it. They'll want to get on there and say, watch us tonight at 10 for this, will it rain tomorrow? Find out tonight at 10. No. Goodness gracious. Hey, they want to know right now if it's going to rain tomorrow, not tonight at 10. And if you don't provide information that people want, they'll go somewhere else. So that tease mentality has got to stop. Yes, you can drive people to a longer form publication, maybe in a magazine or a newspaper or a television, but this kind of stuff's just not going to work anymore. I have been to so many of the editorial meetings in these TV newsrooms over the years where the TV people have the power, and they're used to telling people what to watch and when to watch it and how to watch it, and I would imagine it's the same thing across the board in newspapers and print, radio, and the whole thing. But the truth is, they don't have the power anymore. Who has the power? The people. And I think it's great. But if you cannot give them products that they need on their time schedule, you'll fail. They're not going to wait on you anymore. Tonight at 10, tonight at 6. Yes, you can drive them to your publications, but don't withhold information that they need now. Anyway, I sound cranky today, don't I? I want to talk about the good things. A lot of good things. How many of you have a Twitter account? Raise your hand. It's about everybody. This is mainly about Twitter, and this is a pet peeve of mine. If a real person follows you and your organization, follow them back. This is one I just don't understand. We had a rare opening. We don't have a lot of openings in our department. I run weather at the ABC channel here, and we had an opening for the morning position. Jason Simpson left to be the main guy in Huntsville. And I started interviewing people from around the country. And one of my interview segments was about the use of social media. I wanted to see if they understood it. And one guy, he was from a big market. Now this guy looked good, he had the TV look going. And I said, tell me about your use of Twitter. And he got his chest all pumped out. I have 711 followers. And I said, well, how many do you follow back? And he kind of paused and he said, I'll have to go check on that. Well, I went to check on that. Guess how many he followed back? 0. What are you telling these people? You're telling them that I'm the king and you're going to hear what I have to say, and I don't want to listen to you. I see that over and over and over and over again, especially in old media, but I see it in a lot of the new media. You don't listen to these people. And I'm just telling you that I don't understand that, but it's worked for me. Now, yeah, how many people do you think I follow? I don't know, 40-something thousand. And they say, well, what good is that to you? Well, let me tell you something. I can look at that stream, and within 30 seconds, if there's anything going on in this state, you know what? I'll know about it, and I'll tell the news department about it, and they'll know. I know things. It's just amazing the wealth of information you can gather from that. It's crowdsourcing. And people want to be engaged. They ask questions, and you talk to them, and it's a wonderful thing. So please follow people back. Not the spam bots, but the real people. Now, this is the one that people ask me about all the time. All right, on Facebook. Here's a good example. Saturday night, we had a severe weather issue in far south Alabama, Mobile and Dothan. And so a little Facebook update. It says the northern half of the state will have a lot of rain tonight, but no severe weather problems, none. What's the first question you think that shows up below that? What's it looking like for Coleman? And I'm thinking, oh. Now, this is the human instinct, all right, to this. You want to say, what an idiot. They don't understand geography. They don't know that that's in the northern half of the state. I'm not going to respond to this, but that's the wrong response. If that's your response, you've got it wrong. And let me just say this. If you're going to do this right and and answer questions, you've got to have the patience of a saint. You go look back at my Facebook page for a while. And wait till we have a snow thread. Oh, goodness. Isaac, that's the main reason I don't have any hair. I pulled it out over all these years.
That's why I left, so I can keep mine.
That's right. You made a wise decision. Just because somebody isn't an expert at geography, does that lessen their value? Just because somebody maybe can't read a map that well, does it mean that you shouldn't respond to them? There's a lot of things. Look, I'm good at geography. I am good at the science of meteorology. There's a few things that I excel in, but a lot of things I don't understand. And there's a lot of times I'm asking stupid questions, but yet for those that have the time and the courtesy to respond to me, I will forever be grateful to them. And the same thing works in your business, and the same thing works in my business. Just because you're an expert in this field and you think it's a dumb question and you're not going to answer it, you're wrong. You answer every question, even if it seems silly, stupid, or the fact that they didn't even read what you just wrote. I will respond to that. And how many times have I seen business entities, and they're so proud, they get a Facebook like page. And then people get on there and start asking questions about their business and about their services, and they sit there for days and days and days and nobody responds. If that's the way you're running your business, just shut the page down. You don't need to have that. That looks horrible on you. It's better not to have anything than to put up a Facebook like page where you don't respond. It's two-way. The one thing I teach the broadcast, these young kids coming up, broadcasting will never, ever, ever be one way. It's two-way. And what's the first objection to this? The people that object to this, what do you think the first objection is? I don't have the... If I hear that one more time, my head might explode. It's just like, don't say that. I'm the Southeastern distributor of busy. You walk a day in my shoes, your head will blow up. You'll have an aneurysm. And I get up every morning before 5, but my alarm clock goes off at 4:52 a.m., all right? Now, for you, that might not be early. For me, it's a little early. But in the morning, I'm doing, work, the extreme videos we do. We have a lot of very important weather products. Our most important work is done online. The writing, the weather extreme videos, and we push all that through all these different media. And I'm doing the weather on 27 radio stations. And by the way, I look good on the radio. It's the only place, Ike. That's the only hope I have. Nobody knows. And then I spend a little bit of time with my wife. We talk every morning at 8, and then I take off and go somewhere. Today's school's out, so I'm here. Mostly it's in a school, and then I go in and work the 2 to 11 shift at the TV station. I wind up getting home at midnight, go to bed at 1. I wake up at 4:52. How many hours of sleep is that? Not enough. I'm only 25 years old. This is what you look like when you never sleep. But everybody, well, I'm too busy. I don't have time for that. I'm too busy too, yet I make time for that. Why? Because I make time for the things that are important. And if you don't respond to these people, then you missed it. You missed the boat. You're in this old school knowledge that I'm the powerful person and I'm going to push information to the peons, and I'm not going to respond to them because I'm sitting on my throne here at this big corporate entity or whatever you do. And that's wrong. They have the power. You don't. And let me tell you something. A lot of people that are in corporate settings or in powerful settings think that all of their viewers or their listeners or their customers are idiots. They're not idiots. They're precious people. That's how you are successful. They are your people, and it's your job to serve them. The customer is always right. And I've got news for you. This is bad news, but a lot of people that you think are idiots, guess what? They think you might be one too, especially in the television side. So I'm a big believer in answering questions. And here's the other thing, and this goes back into the time problem. Everything I'm showing you goes back to time. Be consistently available. Now, what's the easiest thing I could do? Go down and hire some kid at Spann Park High School, pay a minimum wage. Hey, watch my social media accounts for the next 3 days. I'm going to go to, take a trip to Acapulco or something, and I'm going to get away from this for 3 days. I don't do that. A lot of people think I have all these underlings that respond and work on these accounts. No. Nobody knows my password but me and my wife. I give her my password to everything, which is an accountability process. But the deal is, you've got to be consistently available. You know what that means? You're going to spend a lot of time with it. But if you spend a lot of time with this on a consistent basis, you will be successful. I promise. And yes, there are times where I do take vacations. There are times I get off the grid, but I'm not going to go pay some kid that doesn't understand me or my heart or what I'm doing to respond for me. People will spot a phony, by the way. I'm telling you, there's a lot of phonies in my business, and they will see through you in a heartbeat. The real you will shine, and if you paid somebody to be answering questions and it's supposed to be you, you will be figured out. And all those people, guess what? They'll never trust you again. And having to earn the trust of people, that takes a lot of time that you don't have and energy. So I'm a big believer in being consistently available. If the weather's bad, on a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, guess what? I've got to be there answering questions. I was honored to speak at the American Meteorological Society's annual meeting in New Orleans. That's our professional society back in January. I was only down there on the floor for those 45 minutes where I spoke, because the night before I was dealing with weather issues and I had to fly back because of the tornado outbreak on January 23rd. I missed a lot down there, but again, you've just got to be consistently available. And I know you've got to get away from it, and I do believe that. But when I'm away from it, guess what? I'll put out a note saying, I'm going to be off the grid. I'm going to spend some time with my wife. I'm going to spend some time away for just a little bit. I'm sorry, but I'll be back and I'll answer your questions tomorrow or in 2 days or something. Try and be very open, good, bad, and the ugly. And this is one thing I struggle with, all right? All the social media experts have told me 8 different answers when I've come to them. What do I do with this, all right? What do I do for a living? Anybody know? I'm a meteorologist. My first major in college was electrical engineering. I didn't finish there. I wound up finishing in meteorology. I was an engineer at the University of Alabama, finished in meteorology at Mississippi State. So that's what I do, and I believe that pushing weather information that is useful can pay off greatly. So what happens if somebody tweets me that there's a 15-car pileup on Interstate 20 near Leeds? What's that got to do with weather? Nothing, in most cases. In my greatest debate, do I sit on that or do I send it out to the world? I don't have a good answer, but if you follow me, you've noted that I've opted to send it out to the world because I think it's what? Useful information. Maybe not for you, but for those, 2,000 people in that traffic jam along I-20 Saturday night, it was pretty useful. And you think I retweet a lot of weird information? You ought to see the stuff I don't retweet. I mean, this is, gosh. You wouldn't believe it, Ike. I had one this morning, a toilet found on the toilet was in the middle lane of US 31 in Vinemont, all right? Now, maybe that was useful information, but I thought that was such a little niche audience there, the toilet in the road thing, but traffic, I don't know what to do with it. I don't have the right answer, but my position on this, if I believe it is a piece of information that is useful to a large number of people, I'll send it down the line. And people fuss at me sometimes for sunsets, sunrises. If you don't like a sunrise or sunset, you're not right. It's like a Valium sandwich. You're having a bad day, I'm telling you. Just stop for a minute and look at some of these images. Some of these people are brilliant photographers. And again, I only push down the good stuff, but some of this stuff is just brilliant. And I do that just because, number one, I like it. Yeah, I am a sucker for a good sunrise or a sunset. There's nothing better in life to be up there at Mount Cheehaw when the sun's coming up on a cold winter morning, or the Gulf Coast. In winter, when the sun goes down over the water at Gulf Shores. It doesn't go down over the water in summer. It goes down over the ocean in winter. I'll pass that on. Is it useful? To me, it's useful because it's peaceful. It gives us something that everybody in this room, we're looking for that peace that maybe we don't have, and that gives us just a little moment where you can look at that thing and just calm down for a minute. But I try and pass along useful information. And this is one thing that I'm not going to talk a lot about today. I teach a lot of leadership courses. One of the things I do, this is strange for me, I teach a lot of leadership courses for healthcare administrative people. Some of you know this, I am the chairman of the board of a major hospital here. Trinity Medical Center. We're moving our hospital down to US 280. And listen, we're going to make that building down there that stands for scandal into something this state can be proud of, despite these frivolous lawsuits by our competitors. We are going to get there. It's going to take a little time, but on my watch, we are going to get there. And I spend a lot of time with that. But I've been involved as a volunteer. I'm not paid a dime to do that. I just believe in it. And I teach a lot of courses, and this is something a lot of us miss. And if you want to be successful in social media, if you're doing this for you, it's never going to work. If you're doing this to make yourself number one or to make yourself a big name. And let me tell you something. Let me just look everybody in the eyes. You are looking at the most selfish person on the planet. 20 years ago, you look up selfish in the dictionary, it would see C. James Spann. I was a jerk. I bought into the TV culture where, you were important and you were the big deal and everybody else, they were just nobodies. And I bought into that. And you can look good on paper, but that doesn't describe the state of your heart. But through a lot of experiences in my life, I learned that if you put others first, that's when life gets good. And I missed it. And I think the same thing applies to social media. And that's what I'm telling you, in order to be motivated to work these long hours, to answer these questions that can seem stupid on the outside, in order to serve all these people, you've really got to have your heart in the right place. And if you're doing this for you, you're going to have a hard time with it. But let's go into some advantages of this. And listen, if you're willing to do these things we've talked about today, good things will happen. And I don't want to talk about this for a long time. Many of you are representing a business. What's the object of the game? Maybe it's to make your business grow. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, if you come in this and if you answer people's questions and serve them and make them number one and not you, good things will happen. There's been a lot of pub here in industry trades about what we did. And I am busy. I don't know. The one thing I have to do is cut out a lot of stuff, and I don't have time to cruise these trades. But after last year, a lot of good things came out. And our little television station, we do very well, audience-wise and revenue-wise, very well. That is one of the benefits of serving people right, is that your business will work. If you have a servant's heart, guess what? People will want to be around you. They will want to conduct business with you. You will flourish. And there's very few people with a genuine servant's heart. But let's do some case studies. This is the fun part, all right? Let's start with last year. I opted not to speak on this subject for 6 months because it was hard. Let me tell you something. When my father abandoned me and my mom, he crushed me emotionally in a way you'll never understand. Then again, maybe you do if this has happened to you. I worshiped the ground my father walked on, and yet he would leave in the middle of the night. Hey, I got to go back last month. Guess where I spoke last month? The Greenville Chamber of Commerce banquet. Hey, I would rather speak to that group than a joint session of the Congress, okay? I got to go back and see some people and reclaim some of the childhood that was robbed and taken from me. It was like being dipped in healing waters that cold night in January, driving down to Butler County, Alabama, speaking to some of my people. Hey, my best friend from first grade is the mayor of Greenville. If you ever have a speeding ticket down there, you call me. You got no problem. What's funny, I didn't know McClendon's name until third grade. Our first, second grade teachers called us by our last name. I was calling him McClendon, he called me Spann, but his name is Dexter McClendon. And goodness, I'm not going to tell Greenville stories. But let me just say, we used to play in the woods a lot down there. Now, I'm not going to tell that story. You have to be careful. If this were Friday, I'd tell that story. It's Monday. But I cherish Greenville. And when I moved to Tuscaloosa, we didn't have anything. I know what it's like to be poor. My mom was making $500 a year at Greenville High School. She was the secretary. You try and raise a child on $500 a year, even in the 60s, it's not going to work. And I'm so thankful she kept me. Most women would drop the kids off at the Baptist Children's Home over in Troy when the man would abandon the child. But we moved. She decided to go for it. I don't know how she paid for this, but she went back to school at the University of Alabama. We lived in an apartment about the size of a bathroom here. But there were some wonderful, precious people in Tuscaloosa that took care of us, that loved us, encouraged us. And watching that thing go through that town at 5:15 that day was the most terrific 5 minutes of my professional career. And I'm not going to show it today because I'm tired of looking at it. I have started speaking about this in public, but I just don't want to show a lot of that in public when I don't have to. But I'm saying I have a personal, emotional attachment to this day. And many of you don't, and you'll never understand it. If you had a child on the campus of the University of Alabama, guess what? You had an emotional attachment to this day. You'll never understand it. If you were a student at the University of Alabama, if you lived in places like Tuscaloosa, Pleasant Grove, Concord, Webster's Chapel, places you never heard of like Sawyerville and Bowley Springs, they got no publicity. You'll never understand it. You don't get it. So you just have to excuse us if we get a little emotional over this sometimes. First tornado of the day, the afternoon. Now, we had a horrible morning event and we didn't forecast. I will look you in the eyes and tell you we missed it. The morning event we didn't forecast 12 hours in advance. We failed. Now, the warnings were good. The short-term warnings, the 12-hour forecast was bad. We've charged the researchers to find out what went wrong. That morning, 5 people died and 250,000 people had no power. We missed it 12 hours in advance. We'll fix it. But in the afternoon, this is the first storm of the day. I tell the young interns we have, the first storm of the day will talk to you. It will tell you a story, and it will. And this was screaming at us. This was the Coleman tornado. And understand, we had a horrible infrastructure hit that morning. The morning storms left us crippled at the television station. We got off the air at 9 o'clock that morning. Everybody rushed in there, and they were talking about this doesn't work, and this doesn't work, and this microwave path was down, this camera was down. And finally, I just had to say, stop. Just tell us what does work, and we'll get through it. I mean, it was like Apollo 13. And we got through it. And in this situation, we thought it was going to work because that tornado came right through downtown Coleman. And not one person died, and there was not one life-threatening injury. The warning was excellent. Warnings were excellent all day on this event. Let me just say this. Part of the problem that we're struggling with, on this day, the death toll was 252, which is insane. You tell me that many people would die on my watch, I'd say you're crazy a year ago. The average lead time was 30 minutes. Why was the death toll so high? It's a question. We all have an opinion on that, but we've got social scientists, behavioral experts to help us figure out why, what went wrong so we can fix it. We thought the death toll should have been 30. But in this case, it worked. People listened, they got to a safe place, everybody came out, and we were okay. But this would set the stage for an incredible afternoon. That was just one tornado. At that point, we had one down in the state, one. Within 1 hour, we had them like bullets from hell. And I know this is not a weather convention, but let me say this. This is good stuff. This is history. We all need to have that video. It needs to be in there for recorded history. But what's important for the people in Coleman is not what you're showing them when the tornado's coming through town. It's what you said 30 minutes before it got to town. In some of these weather conferences, I'm seeing everybody showing this great video of these tornadoes coming right through the middle of these towns, which we all have. But what did you say 30 minutes before it got there? Let me just say this. I know this is technically not social media, but the 2 guys that got this video, they were heroes. That's the Tuscaloosa tornado 40 minutes before it came into town in that live stream on Ustream. And what people say, why do you use Ustream? It's universal. They encode it in Flash and H.264. And for these TV stations that are streaming video in Flash only, shame on them. We've got to move past that. That's an example of doing things for you and not doing it for the public. You've got to make it available for every platform that's out there, even if you don't like it. Some of you in this room are Apple fanboys, some of you are Microsoft fanboys. It doesn't matter. We've got to put this information out universally. We use Ustream because it's universal. We pay them not to run ads, of course, on these streams. But this was John Oldshoe and Ben Greer. Oldshoe used to work with me. And Oldshoe actually did some internet business type stuff, and he did very well for himself. And guess what? He didn't have to work TV weather anymore. But he's got a servant's heart. You know why? He came all the way from Mobile up here to work that outbreak. And by showing that live and calling a tornado emergency for the cities of Tuscaloosa and Northport, 40 minutes in advance, John and Ben were the heroes that nobody wanted to talk about. Not James Spann. I'm a bag of hot air. These guys were the ones. And within that, we knew that we had to reach people that don't watch television news. I know it's shocking. Some people don't watch television news. Where'd my TV people go? Oh, they left. I can really talk about them now. Here's how I handled April 27th. I hand-type Twitter messages. It's not automated. And I don't know if it's right or wrong. I am not going to stand here and tell you I've got all the answers. I don't. The first thing I tell these young people, when I'm talking to them in the colleges, I'll be in Starkville here in a few weeks, and it's a bunch of weather kids. I don't have all the answers, but let me just tell you what I did, and let's talk about it and see if it's right or wrong. But I believe that the better use of Twitter was for hand-typing these. And I'm not an all-caps guy. Let me tell you something. You see me type tornado emergency in all caps for the place where you live, you better dig a hole because it's serious. I'm not going there. If it's one of these little marginal squall line QLCS tornadoes that might be there or might not. This was actually captured off the stream, and there were a lot of other ones that are not on there. But, you know, you see me with that computer in front of me up on that live stream. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of traffic. I mean, it is mind-boggling what goes on there. But I will hand-type Twitter emergency messages. We have an automated account called eWarn that sends out all the warnings. But I just believe from my personal account, if it is hand-typed, and if it is extremely urgent, if I put tornado emergency in all caps, people will pay attention. And I have reason to believe there are people in Tuscaloosa standing here today because of some of this stuff. It worked. On the Twitter side, or on the Facebook side, I do automate the warnings to the Facebook like page. That's big numbers over there. I just believe that's the best use of the two entities, of Twitter and Facebook. Twitter, I hand type them. Facebook, I automate them. And it worked out pretty well. And let me just say this. Do you know there's a lot of business people in this city and in this state that belittle social media? Let me tell you something. You got people alive today because of it, and they still belittle it. They think it's this little game where high school girls are gossiping about their boyfriends. For the people that claim that it's a bunch of high school kids gossiping, the business has passed them by. They don't need to be in business anymore. They missed it. This is how the world communicates. And it is the direct result of social media that people are walking around today after April 27th. I took about 10,000 pictures. I'm not going to show you but one. That's one of them. This is hard stuff. After 4 days of kind of being intensely involved, I had to get off the grid one day, and I got a bunch of baseball dads. Our youngest is 14 years old. He plays baseball. Gosh, man, you ought to smell. If I ever offer you a ride in my truck, don't ride with me. I carry 14-year-old baseball boys around. It smells in there. It's rotten. But me and a bunch of baseball dads got a bunch of chainsaws and pickup trucks and took off to the country. That's dangerous in itself. I told you all I know this state pretty well. I knew that Tuscaloosa had a lot of help pouring in. Oh, they were on ESPN, MSNBC, Fox, CNN, Birmingham, Pratt City, Pleasant Grove, yeah. But I knew there were a lot of places in rural Alabama that didn't have any help. And just because you live in a rural setting doesn't mean you should be discriminated against. And for all these TV stations around the country that stop tornado programming when a tornado leaves a major city and they forget the people in the country, then shame on them. Because they have the right to know. They have the right to basic services. They have the right to severe weather information. They have the right to emergency services. And why do we forget these people? Just because you don't live in a stinking city. Maybe I got too much redneck in me from South Alabama. Let me tell you what, I am from Greenville, Alabama. And I love people that live in the country. That's in rural Walker County. And what's interesting, that child, by the way, was happy. You know, and I deal with kids. I am a children's ministry guy. That's what I do. And you never know how they're going to react after something like this. That's his kid's house. And he was really happy for the sole reason that he was alive, his brothers and sisters were alive, and his parents were alive. And all that stuff that he worried about the day before, all this stuff that we worship today, everybody in this room, we're so worried about these phones and iPads and pods and, you know, doodle dads we have here. And there's nothing wrong with this. It's great. But it's funny how in a matter of minutes, all that stuff doesn't matter anymore. It's just stuff. You can go buy another phone. They didn't have any help. And so one of the really good things that helped me, and I struggle with this one, I didn't have a chance to get off the grid. And I cried a lot late at night in my bed. But what helped me, and I'm going to hold it together, like I say, I am talking about this now, I'm going to hold it together, guys. What helped me was projects like this. I played a very small role in helping this family get into a house, family of 11. They moved in their house right before Christmas. That's good stuff. And we also use social media in a large way to coordinate this. And this is the one thing that I didn't see coming, was what happened after the tornado. Usually after a tornado disaster, we are done. We hand it off to the newsroom. We're finished. And I didn't see this coming. I had no idea. And you know, I started looking down at my phone, and before you know it, I started seeing urgent messages with people that needed help. They had no power, no way of communication, but they had a phone and they had a Twitter account. And they would put my name on it, thinking I could get them help just because I have big numbers I got. I don't know why they put my name on it. And I felt so helpless. These were urgent calls for help. And I would just start hitting the retweet button out of desperation. I was busy. I didn't know what to do. And I did call some people within the emergency management community and said, guys, please watch this stream. I need help. And they did. And the help started to come. This was a blog, a emergency management blog. And let me say, they had me in the same league as Andy Carvin. I'm not in his league. That's not a good comparison. I'm not at that level. And I appreciate what they're trying to say. But I didn't see the importance of social media and the relief efforts. It was urgent, life-saving information that came in minutes, hours, days, and months after April 27th. And we've all learned a lot about proper use of hashtags. All of those that are social media experts in here have helped me. Next time it happens, we'll be better equipped. And I still don't know if they're going to tweet me again. Maybe they won't. But if they do, I will know better how to handle it the next time. And I guess they just did it because I had numbers, critical mass. But I will tell you that relief effort that went on for days and days and days and days and days, social media played a critical role in matching haves and needs. Critical. And thanks to all of you in this room that helped me. Some of you know who you are. Thank you. And thanks to all of you that spent some time to volunteer and to help somewhere. But I tell everybody that the thing we struggle with, you know, we had that guilt thing going because we felt like we had blood in our hands. We felt like we did something wrong. We didn't say the right thing or we didn't do the right thing, and all these people died and it was horrible. But what helped me was just adopting one family at a time, which is what we did for that family in Walker County. But that's a case study, April 27th, 2011. That is a generational tornado outbreak. That's our first social media tornado event in this state. And it worked. Was it perfect? No, but it worked. It played a critical role. And anybody that belittles the role of social media in this event, they missed it or they don't get it. That's case study number one. Let's do case study number two. Trying to see who's in here so I won't get in trouble. I really in my heart believe that being a positive person will make you a success. I don't want you to see anything other than that. But even those that have a passion, a positive energy, a zeal for their job, for those of you in this room that love walking in the door of your place of business every single day, guess what you're going to have to deal with? Issues that are hard. And sometimes it happens, and I thought I'd go through this as just a little case study. I don't know why. All right, so we had a tornado outbreak on January 23rd, a month ago. 2 direct deaths, 1 was an indirect death. The official death toll was 3, but 2 direct deaths. 1 was in Oak Grove, 1 was in Clay. The girl that died in Clay was 16 years old. The picture of that girl will haunt me for the rest of my life. Again, we worked pretty hard on that one. The warnings were good. The average lead time was over 35 minutes. And I thought in this case it worked pretty well. This was an EF3 tornado that came through Center Point in Clay, an EF2 that came through Oak Grove. The death toll could have been 200. It was in the middle of the night, between midnight and 6 a.m. And we had 2 direct fatalities, and I thought the warning process in this case worked pretty well. And with my production schedule, it is hard. You know, we got off the air about 8 o'clock that morning, and I went right into recording radio, audio, and I went right into we have a digital 24 weather channel. We have to do videos for that. And I mean, I didn't have a moment to sleep. I mean, 0. You know, a lot of times you stay up all night, catch a cat nap. You know, So I got the 5 o'clock news, and I ran in my little office right when World News Tonight started. And she said in the lead story, it was a surprise. There was no warning. Just, you know, I usually ignore that. And look, let's defend Diane. I have she doesn't understand this. She does not understand a tornado outbreak. It would be like sending me to cover politics. I'd have no interest in it, don't understand it, don't want to know anything about it. You would know within 60 seconds I'm clueless, but with her, you know in 60 seconds she's clueless about this event. But what's a little disturbing is that at an organization that large, you ought to have staff writers and researchers that kind of vet this stuff out and make it right by the time it gets to the lead story. My mama taught me one thing. Did I say thank goodness for a godly mom? Let me tell you what, she stuck with me. She raised me right. We didn't have anything, but let me tell you what, we made it. Me and her. I have no brothers and sisters. We made it. And I dealt with a lot of bullies. All this bullying stuff, man, you talk about bullies, you ought to grow up with me, man. I was beat up on a regular basis in school. But Mama taught me one thing about bullies. Every once in a while, there comes a time where you got to stand up to them and look them in the eyes, and they'll back down. I thought of my mama's words when that came on. And they get it wrong all the time. The Enterprise High School thing in 2007 drove me crazy. They went down there and belittled that high school principal for 3 days about killing all these kids in the school because he didn't send them home, where the truth is, because he kept them in the school, he probably saved the lives of 200. And those national media blow-dried boobs went home to New York, wherever they're from, after belittling this precious man down there. And I drove all the way down there to apologize. And they just didn't understand it. But anyway, long story short, I just challenged her to debate on Twitter. You know, I don't know what to do. I was tired. I mean, I had no sleep. I said, Diane, you say there are no warnings. I say there were warnings. Let's have a debate. I'll come on your show or you can come on mine. And I didn't think this would, lead to anything. And the next day it became this media storm on social media, you know? But that's a reminder you can make a difference. Little old person in Birmingham, Alabama. They did a story the next night that was correct. Did she apologize? No. Were there some things wrong in the second story? Yes. But they did the story. I am thankful. Thumbs up to ABC News and thumbs up to Diane Sawyer. Most of them would never do this, but they did it. And I give them credit. A lot of people say, well, you ought to be mad because she didn't apologize. I don't want apology. I just wanted them. What she did, she devalued the warning process, and she discredited the warning process. And I'm not thinking of me. I'm thinking all these people that don't have a voice. The National Weather Service, the emergency managers that don't have a jillion Twitter followers. I was thinking of them. So let's give them credit. They did the right thing. I got to hurry. Aaron's over there going the 5-minute countdown. I'll hurry. I love this story. A man in St. Clair County found this photograph in his yard. And he thought it was in the tornado zone. Sure enough, it was. Make a real long story short, I said, mail that thing to me. I'll find out who it is. I put that sucker up on Facebook, and within a matter of minutes, we knew who that was, the situation, the story, everything. This guy graduated from Clay Chalkville High School in the late 1900, it was 1998, I think. What's amazing, the parents' house was just wiped out. They lived in Pilgrim's Rest in Clay. And I found out she was still in the hospital, and it happened to be my hospital, and my key card gets in everywhere. Now, I checked with the floor nurse because let me tell you something, people that have lost their home, you don't understand what they've been through. And the idea of James Spann walking in that room, it can be traumatizing. So I talked to her. She went in and talked with the lady, and she said she'd be glad to see me. I hand-delivered that high school portrait to her. And that night, I got this email from the brother. The guy is Patrick Hobbs. This is the brother that was in the room. And this is good stuff. This is what life is all about. It's good. And what's really interesting, I was supposed to speak that day at the University of Montevallo. I never have 2 hours. But somehow the professor had missed the time, and we had our dates wrong, and I had 2 hours. Just enough time to hand-deliver that to that lady. And we cried, and she smiled, and I think that started a healing process. And what made it happen? Social media. Don't belittle this stuff. And I'm preaching to the choir in here, but there's a lot of people that still today make fun of me. They laugh over this stuff. And let me tell you what, most of them aren't laughing anymore. Priorities, I'm not here to tell you what's right in your life, but I will say this, for a guy like me, I got to be careful. Everybody has a different set of priorities, but you have to set them, and I would suggest writing them down and putting them in your phone, your iPad, your Droid, whatever you got. What's important in your life, and you got to be sure that you do not get away from the most important stuff to handle social media. Guess what? I will not respond to a question about Coleman if I've got an issue with my family. I won't. There's some things I do that are very important to me. So I just wanted to mention that one word. Oh, and one more thing. Isaac, do I sound like an Apple fanboy? This is what Steve Jobs always said. For those that have never heard an Apple keynote, Steve Jobs always says at the end, what? One more thing. I just wanted to share one more thing with you. I've learned a lot about social media. One thing that we have done that a lot of you perhaps don't know, and quite frankly, you should not know about this, because this media is not targeted to you. This media is targeted to weather geeks, dweebs, weenies, nerds, and dorks, okay? And I know there's at least one in this room other than me, but probably none others. We've done a show for 6 years called Weather Brains. Podcast, whatever you want to call it, it's just media. And we have patterned this show, we did it just for fun. We love weather. It's our creative outlet. We've been doing it on Monday nights. We distributed that through the world, and it's gotten critical mass. And one of my good friends is Leo Laporte. Does anybody know who Leo Laporte is? If you don't, you need to find out who he is. This Week in Tech. You must study this guy. Yes, I'm a friend of Leo's. I've been on his shows. He's been on mine. Leo said some very kind things. I consider him a good friend. But he was on Tech TV. Tech TV went away. He decided to do some shows on the internet. And now all of a sudden he's got a business where he's making 5 times the money he ever made on broadcast television. He's figured it out. And through what Leo's done and what we've learned, we're launching a new entity here this spring called Big Brains Media. There's no such thing as a barrier to broadcasting anymore. 2,000-foot towers, radio stations, printing presses, you don't need them anymore. Everybody in here now can be a broadcaster, but we think the way to play it's through niche audiences. And Mark Phillips, a local musician, a creative guy that's a good friend of mine, and my oldest son, JP, we have launched this entity. And this Weather Brains will be under this umbrella, but the other shows won't be about weather. I look forward to standing here in 5 years and telling you about this, the successes with this, like we've done through social media. We've learned a lot, and I'm just saying watch for that. We've got some very exciting things coming in the spring and beyond. Thank you all for letting me come today. I am done. My time is up.